gone off. Welcome everybody. This is Gedling Borough Council's Cabinet meeting this afternoon. It's not the interrogation of Boris Johnson, which I'm sure will take a lot longer than this one. So we'll start off on item 1, which is apologies for absence. I don't look as if we've got apologies. Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Sorry?
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Oh, sorry, I forgot she's sunning it somewhere, isn't she? Yeah. Sorry, Jenny. Yeah, she's sunning somewhere. Well, I hope sun's out. Right. Previous correct record, they're on page 5 to 8. The minutes of the meeting held on 16th of February, so I'll move them from the chair. Seconded. We are agreed. We are agreed. Thank you. Moving quickly on to the next part, which is declaration of interest. Non-declared. So we'll move on to item 4, which is a forward plan. And who's going to do that today? Is it Ben?
Caroline.
Thank you, Leader. That's just for noting. And
just for noting.
The 3 items on the forward plan are covered in this meeting. Right,
so it's a bit difficult that. How do we do that? I suppose people really refer when they're looking at this, if the few people that look at the TV to see the papers that marry with what I'm saying. So. Okay, then forward plan with that. We're asked to note that's on page 9 to 14. And so I'm asking people to, when I find it, to agree the recommendation, which is on page 9. And we note in the context of the draft forward plan, making comments where appropriate. Any comments? There are no comments received, so I'll move the recommendation that we note it. Can we second it? Thank you. We're agreed. Thank you. We're moving on today. We're going to a record. Where are we? Performance indicators. Mike, your star turn.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to agree the performance indicators and targets against which progress of the Gedling plan will be measured in 2023-24. The targets are set out in Appendix 1 of the report. Just briefly, Leader, paragraph 2.2 of the report sets out the new performance indicators we have set up or proposing for next year. There are 4 in total. The first one is looking at the way the occupancy is of the council-managed commercial units. The next 2 are about the number of nights and families spent in bed and breakfast and temporary accommodation, because it's important that we maintain monitoring over that. And the final one is about the number of customers attending our outreach hubs. Again, a useful development that we've introduced last year. Paragraph 2.3 details the 5 indicators that we have technically deleted, although what we have done, we have moved them into the departmental service targets. So we'll still continue to monitor them, but they'll be monitored at a lower level by departmental managers. Paragraph 2.4 shows the targets that have been reviewed and in most cases remain the same to ensure that the performance, high performance is maintained throughout next year. And paragraph 2.5 shows the performance indicators that we are proposing to slightly reduce. The reason for this is that the target has not quite been met in the current year, so we're adjusting those to more realistic levels. In some cases, particularly like the percentage of business rates collected, it has been reduced by 0.1%, so it is a minor change on that. And just to finish, Leader, paragraph 2.7 shows that progress against these performance indicators will continue to be reported to Cabinet and scrutiny on a quarterly basis, and they will be published on the Council's website. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any comments? No comments? Michael, no? Okay, then I'll move the recommendation and I'll call for a seconder. Second. All right, we agreed? We are agreed. Thank you. It's going to be a quick meeting. We hope. Right, item 6, which is Tanya's turn to play start turn, and that's the Burton Road, Station Road affordable housing schemes and the purchase of additional temporary accommodation properties.
Thank you, Leader. I'm here today just to present the revised business case for Burton Road and Station Road, and also a proposal to purchase additional temporary accommodation properties. In 2001, a business case was submitted to Cabinet, which proposed that the council develop those 2 sites for the provision of affordable accommodation and temporary accommodation. Since that approval, development hasn't taken place, and during 2022, a review of the business case was undertaken. The review considered all of the options previously considered in 2001, and particularly focused at the two shortlisted options, one of which was discounted, which was for a registered provider to develop the sites. It felt necessary to review the business case because of the current economic climate and the risks that developing the sites has on the council in terms of cost inflation. Also considering the capacity and skills within the council to deliver a housing project, as well as managing a social affordable housing scheme. The business case concludes that the best option for the council would be to look to a registered provider to develop those sites and to focus on affordable accommodation for which there's still demand, rising demand within the borough. The report also recommends that we look to purchase additional temporary accommodation that would alleviate the demand upon bed and breakfast immediately and meet the council's obligations in terms of providing suitable accommodation, particularly for families with children and for pregnant women. So what's before you today is a proposal that you approve the revised business case and we go forward with a tender to the open market for a registered provider who would provide affordable accommodation and nomination rights to the council in perpetuity, and that we proceed with the purchasing of additional temporary accommodation units. We're seeking approval that the authority to go to the market is delegated to the Chief Exec, and that we would report back to Cabinet on the tenders that we receive. And that authority is delegated to the Chief Exec in terms of the purchasing of additional temporary accommodation. Can I help you any further?
I can say, at the end of the day, I think we'll end up with a scheme that will be worthy of what we wanted originally, but nobody put everything in the way of it, did they? Nobody put COVID in there, supply chains, getting the planning, drains, everything else that went into that. So I think this is a way out. Plus we'll end up, and just checking out 7 additional residential properties, there'll be hours, won't there? There'll be hours. So in total, what have we got then? 14? Is it 14 or 15?
15 hopefully, plus we had, I think, 7 beforehand as well. So
Yeah.
we'll be in the low 20s once we've got
Yeah,
those.
I mean, it gives us some properties to play around with. It also helps with that high bill that we got of the bed and breakfast. And that has been a problem. It's been a problem right the way through. And I know, looking at the emails that are coming on here, you know, can you help us with this housing? And I think everybody's inbox now is getting quite a lot of requests. And we just can't do these things. And we've got to put them in something reasonable. I think we had a Ukraine couple, or I think it was mother and daughter, because I think most of the men were left in Ukraine, but they were housed in one of our less suitable hotels because that's all that was available. And so at least it will be able to offer a decent standard of living and accommodation. So I will move that recommendation. It's on page 33. There are 6 items on there. Everybody happy that it's delegated to Chief Executive? Do you think we trust him? You look at an honest person?
On his face.
Yeah, and we will obviously be told, or the new cabinet will be told, what the situation is. But do you think that, you know, I know I'm pushing your tenure, but do you think on timescales, do you think that probably by the end of the year we could see some movement on those sites?
That is what we're hoping to do.
Thank you. Anyone else, Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'm happy to second the recommendation. This report for me does 2 things: resolves the ongoing saga around Burton Road and Station Road. They're eyesores for the local community. This hopefully puts that right, and crucially potentially provides additional housing, maybe through social housing, registered housing providers, which we know there is a pressure for in the borough. But it also, the second part of this report deals with the issues around pressure we've got on temporary accommodation and the significant cost that is bringing for the council in terms of bed and breakfast. Obviously, we would love to have more than the 21 that this will bring, 7 plus the 14. Maybe we will get to the 15 within budget. We'll have to see. But only a change in national government policy is going to resolve these issues. I just simply make this point as well. Reference is made in the report about the fact that it would have been tricky to pursue the current business case because of the economic climate, because of lack of expertise potentially within the council and the significant risk that it brings with the construction phase. I just reiterate the point I've made for a number of years now. At some point, I do hope as an organisation and a council, when the wind changes economically, that we are able to dip our toe into the social housing market and that eventually we are able to start building council homes again. There is a significant demand for affordable, really affordable, quality housing, not just in this borough but across the country. But for me, this is a report, Leader, that puts right two things: the pressure on the temporary accommodation bed and breakfast budget, and also resolving those two sites, which have been a frustration of mine and yours and colleagues in the Cabinet for a while now. So I think it's the right approach, and I think colleagues should be commended. The business case also is rigorous and robust, and I think sets out, the rationale for why we're taking this approach. So colleagues who have put forward the business case should be congratulated for the work they've done as well.
Thanks, Michael. Viv?
Yeah, to echo what you've just said, thank you, Leader. Echo what you've just said, Michael, and again, thank you very much for the report and all the information. I mean, anything that we can do to alleviate families going into bed and breakfast accommodation, one of the most important things that we have in terms of our role in the borough is to ensure that people have got a roof over their head and we look after our vulnerable and our families in our community. I think we know from 10 years of Arnold Food Bank, and actually what we realise is actually money coming in benefits is not meeting cost of living. People can't manage. Rising rents, it's all massively depressing, and I think anything we can do to try and secure some accommodation for families, decent accommodation, I think is very welcomed, and I think we should be striving. That's the number one thing we should be doing in this borough, is making sure people have got a roof over their head. So I commend that. Thank you.
Thanks, Viv. Anyone else? No one else indicating. So there are 6 recommendations there. They're on page 33. I've already moved them. Seconded?
Yes, seconded.
We agreed? We are agreed. Thank you. That's good. Thanks, Tanya, team who put that together, and it'll help Paul a bit to sort out some of it. I don't know. Why have you still got all your hair, Paul? Yeah, the amount of people that are coming at you all the time.
Just lucky, I think.
I'm working on it.
Just handsome guy, that's it. Right, we'll move on to the final, I think it's final one, we're always 7. Item 7. And that's the Economic Regeneration Land Assembly. This is just an exercise of bidding and getting some land, assembling for some further work within the borough. If you remember that the AMP and a substantial time and effort that went into that, and that was some effort to get that land. It takes ages sometimes, as with other developments, so that's what it is. The Cabinet is recommended on page 3 of item 7. That approves the acquisitions of the site, shown on the plan exempt Appendix 1, for no more than the sum set out in exempt Appendix 2. Delegates authority to the Chief Executive to agree heads of terms for the acquisition of the site, as shown on plan at exempt Appendix 1, to make a formal offer for no more than the maximum price set out in the exempt Appendix 2, and is subject to the offer being accepted to complete the acquisition of the site. Mike, do you want to say something on that?
Probably Tanya might want to say.
Or Tanya, do you want to say something, Tanya?
Yes, the report proposes that we acquire the site in the exempt appendix. It is for regeneration purposes that we're seeking approval today. The report does detail the importance of the site and the strategic context of why we want to acquire the site. It is to the north of the town centre, as detailed in the report. It was an area detailed within the levelling up bid that we submitted to central government last year. We have received support from local businesses as well as shoppers in providing a rationale of why that area needs to be developed and the strategic importance it has in terms of the long-term viability to the town centre. We have had comments given to us about the current perception of the area in terms of dilapidation and decline. What we're seeking to do is acquire this site so that we can develop in the future, and having the site in our ownership provides confidence both for future bids to central government, with the levelling up round 3 being advertised, well, not formally, we've not been formally notified, but we are expecting 1 billion to be available later in the year for councils to bid, and therefore being in a position to have a site where we can put forward applications either to levelling up or to other bidding rounds, and also to give confidence to other partners, puts us in a better position.
Thanks, Tanya. Anyone say anything? David?
Thank you, Chair. You'd expect me to welcome this since it's in my ward, but also this part of Arnold, the town centre, is important for all of Arnold and indeed for all of the borough. So I think it's a good move. I think we've seen the investment in the marketplace, which is starting to pay dividends in the south of Arnold, and as you say, Leader, plenty of time and effort went into that. And now we're recognising that the north of Arnold needs investment, and I don't think you can disagree with the comments that were made on paragraph 1.4 about the needs of the area, and something in the north that would complement the AMP in the south would really work towards regenerating the area and improving it. It's interesting, isn't it, the number of people that believe that we already own a lot of the properties in the area, lots of shops, and when we've had discussions in the past, that's come out from people. But as a council, we've traditionally had very low levels of land holdings, unlike some others. But this is land acquisition for a purpose, an important purpose, and I support this, and I trust that there is another round of levelling up funding, and that next time we actually get some funding. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Yeah, it's not unlike the city who own, is it 2/3 of the city? A good chunk of it. I think that's probably where the council went wrong years and years ago before any of us were on it, not by getting the land bank. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Like yourself and Councillor Ellis, I fully support this. This clearly shows that this council is still hugely ambitious, not just for Arnold Town Centre, but for all its high streets and town centres, in spite of the fact that we were really let down by the Conservative government in the last round of levelling up funding, where yet again they chose not to fund Gedling's communities and high streets. And it's remarkable, isn't it? Because while this council still has ambition for Arnold, clearly the government have completely given up on Gedling, not just on Arnold, but on Carlton, on Burton Joyce, on Mapley, on Gedling Village and on the other areas. On the 15th of March, a letter was written by the Minister, Lee Rowley, to leaders and chief executives, detailed within that letter in black and white, which is clear for the public to see on the government website, were 3 new announcements that were formed part of the Chancellor's budget. Levelling up partnerships were announced, 20 new areas were identified. They're going to receive bespoke, planned-based regeneration for their town centres, and what a surprise, Gedling wasn't one of them. But there were also, Leader, 2 further announcements. A £58 million behind the sofa unallocated departmental budget from Minister Lee Rowley's department was found to fund 3 further projects that didn't meet the levelling up round in round 2. And surprise, surprise, Gedling wasn't one of them. Congratulations, by the way, to Sefton, Rossendale and Stockport, who will each share in £58 million of that funding. And the third announcement in Minister Lee Rowley's letter was that £211 million would be given out to 16 further areas that failed in the levelling up round. 16 areas benefiting from £211 million, including Telford and Wrekin and many other areas. And surprise, surprise, Gedling wasn't one of them. Where are our members of Parliament championing for our local community? Nowhere to be seen. Where is the Conservative government championing our area? Nowhere to be seen. Whilst they're fiddling, whilst our town centres are being let down by the economic economic climate, this council is getting on with investing in its areas. We've regenerated part of Carlton Square. There is more to do in that area. It is privately owned. We've significantly regenerated Arnold Market and the public square that is outside of Arnold Market. And quite rightly, as Councillor Ellis says, there is the north end of Arnold, which is run down, which needs some significant investment. And we need to be ready so that when we finally have a government that actually shares out its funding in an appropriate way and gives Gedling taxpayers the fair share that they deserve, this council is there to take advantage of it. And this administration, should we be elected on the 4th of May, won't stop there. We won't just be looking after Arnold, we'll be looking after Netherfield and Colwick and Mapley and Gedling and Burton Joyce and all the other areas that deserve the fair share of funding from this government that they haven't got. I congratulate colleagues who have put together this report. It shows we're ambitious, it shows we're eager to keep investing in our town centres, and I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, and I hope we acquire this piece of land. It puts us on a really good strategic footing to start making Arnold the proud town centre that it once was.
Thanks, Michael. Hopefully we'll have somebody batting for us by that time in Parliament, which would help because it's significant. It's galling at the moment. Where was that one? Stockport.
Yeah.
The amount of money Stockport, if you've ever studied Stockport and had a look at what they did, and it was really run down, is incredible what they've done there. But you can only do it with the money, can't you? We can't ask Tanya to go out there and do this, that and the other, and if she's not got no brass in her pocket, you can't do it. And that's it, and that's the name of the game. So I hope things change, and I hope, so at least some of the crumbs fall this way, but we won't stand still. We've always been proud of that when we took over 12 years ago, that we would be a borough of growth, and that's what we wanted. Well, we've certainly got it with housing, there's no doubt in that, but we'd like some of the other nicer bits to go with it and something to help the people who've got that drive and ambition to see it go through. So if there are any more comments, if there aren't, we'll move the recommendation. There's no more comments. It's on page 3, there's 2 recommendations there. I've read them out before, so I've moved that. Seconded? Seconded. All in favour? That's agreed. Thank you. So thanks, everyone. And there's no other items we consider urgent. So, yeah, we're a bit quicker than old Boris. I bet he's sweating now, but I better switch that off. Thanks.